You may have heard of a time capsule. Well, this here is a rhyme capsule. Historical chronicle, lyrical archive of our time, etched into phones, clouds and hard drives. So, if at some point in the future, assuming we make it through the present's numerous bin fires, somebody should inquire, ruminate or ponder on the topic of what it meant to be alive in 2025, well, then you can send them in this direction. So actually one time there was a guy who wrote a rhyme to deal with that exact question. Being alive in 25 in one of the world's wealthiest corners, but where the average person's living standards are reversing and most are getting poorer, keeping head above water is the new national sport here in the economic south of the global north. It's a strange kind of status. Might have pay slips that barely cover the basics, but still can't escape it that I live in a level of relative luxury that's utterly unreachable for much of the peoples of the earth, and not qualified at birth for a passport that from Damascus to Darfur people are ready to risk their arse for, even breathe their last for, freeze in the desert or drown in the dark for. And something's very wrong here, because people who are from here still seem to have an affliction, believing a fiction depicting themselves as the victim. Immigrant fashion is right back in fashion, people acting reprehensibly, but who you think foreign aid slashing and climate inaction is going to increase exponentially. But then there's a lot we don't do so sensibly. Culture that looks down with belligerence on benefit recipients, but fixates on that one family with dole checks in the millions. And we got plastic in every fabric of the planet and those that inhabit, but production is still rampant like rabbits, planes still cheaper than trains, and we're still drilling because the climate might be warming, but the apathy towards it is chilling. Yeah, being alive in 25 is a curious proposition, sure is full of contradiction. Street doctor will deliver a description of prescriptions to your front door rapidly, but trying to see a dentist or a GP is like getting tickets to Glastonbury. And it is obnoxiously costly, being alive in 25, hands dipping into your pockets from every side, food packages, trying to disguise the price rises by shrinking the sizes, landlords turning mould into gold, water companies delivering dividends into the billions for unloading effluents into the ocean with indifference. And when the basic charges incurred to simply keep breathing are so steeply increasing, then so do the numbers of people that fall beneath them. The rough sleeping I'm seeing has got me terrified, because the screen between them and I has never felt thinner, barely a glimmer. All it would take to put me on the street is my landlord picking a number that my boss won't meet, because I'm not homeless, but nor do I have a home. According to my contract, I got a roof for the month and not much guarantee beyond that, and mine is a thoroughly typical predicament. Part of the housing crisis you can see is only the tip of it. Significant piece of the population, a pavement adjacent, ice on which they're skating, only as thin as a single paycheck or benefit payment. Where there's billionaires, there's food banks, both on the rise in 25, the ever-increasing divide between those who work for a living and those who own for a living. And we get plenty of rhetoric about nobody owes you a living. Welfare state always got space for a little fiscal trimming, picking on those swimming on the bottom while those skimming from the top always seem to be forgotten. And there's a lot of talk of tough decisions and fairness, but I just can't square this with living in a land where 50% of the stuff is in 1% of the hands, because once you rebrand inequality as scarcity, then UK billionaires get collectively paid 30 million a day while the rest of us get permanent austerity. And with rents up to 25% higher than mortgages, affordable housing shortages and tax structures that accelerate and perpetuate these obscene extremes, it's morally appalling. Wealth gap is more like a gorge, take caution on your falling. And those always taking bigger slices have their devices in keeping alive the lie that there's just less pie, so it's probably best if you fight among yourselves for the rest. And when only 3 companies run 90% of the press, it's easy to keep us obsessed with staying at each other's throats, crying, it was the pronouns, it was the wokes, it was the Islams, it was the boats. But I don't know if any of those flimsy dinghies patrons have bank accounts in the Caymans, Bermuda, BVI or any of the other world's top havens for evasion, all coincidentally British-owned nations. It doesn't take a financial analyst to recognise we're world champs at this. So if you're fleeing famine and war, then we're slamming the door. But if you're fleeing the tax man, then you can relax, man, and welcome ashore. And being alive in 25 is to be spoilt for choice, rejoice in the endless variations that face us, from TV stations to vape flavours. But when the question in front of me is who gets to run the country, that's when the options get a lot more binary. And it must just be my memory lying to me, because I swear there was a time when you could tell one from the other, because now what we get are back-to-back tracks and 2 tribute acts singing each other's covers. So if being alive in 25 feels like we've already been there, his hero snatched your milk and now he's coming to snatch your wheelchair, an apartheid supporter who ought to have listened to Desmond Tutu when he said that in his view this version was even more disturbing than the one that he lived through. So if you're afraid we're as bankrupt morally as we are economically, then that's just probably a side effect being alive in 25 can give you. And being alive in 25, all our attention spans are fried. Distraction from contraptions got our concentrations contracting till we lose patience quicker than Harold Shipman. Now even 30-second clips feel the need to plead, watch till the end in the description. And we're generation, whatever situation, there must be an app for that, must be a pill or a jab for that. Show me where on the screen I need to tap for that. Such as our dependence on tech, feels like soon we'll be coming out the womb with thumbs all smooth and hunched necks. And when digital baskets hold all our eggs, the question it begs is where in 25 do we have left to go if the day should arrive when computer says no? Because when the wisdom of algorithms is given permission to access almost every aspect of our existence, then so are those bros and CEOs that lurk behind them. And if you need reminding to whom we gave this ungodly monopoly of influence and power in the technocracy, well, there's the one who doesn't believe in facts, the one whose attitude to tax is causing your local high street to collapse, then there's the one with the salute who's in cahoots with a convicted sex offender, best friend of an ethnic cleanser. So remember, if sometimes it feels like a car crash, been alive in 25, well these are the guys we've allowed to drive, but I don't want to provide only one side and be unduly gloomy. I do love being alive in 25, and a truly unruly amount of beauty still finds its way to me. You just gotta listen and look for it that little bit harder, because nowadays all the ugly feels so much louder and larger. And when your best friend is the pen on whom you depend as both a coping and a hoping mechanism, then surviving it by describing it always seems to be the best position. So this one goes out in camaraderie and solidarity to strangers and to family far and wide, and to anyone exhibiting symptoms of the condition known as being alive in 25.